Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive dark shape floating in space through the main screen of his ship. The thing was huge, maybe 3 times the size of his research vessel Meridian. It looked old and dead, with strange metal curves that seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt his eyes to follow. "How long has it been drifting out here?" Jake asked his crew. Dr. Lisa Carter checked her readings again. "Based on the metal decay and radiation patterns, I would say at least 500 years. Maybe more." Lieutenant Ben Hayes shifted nervously at his post. "Captain, that design matches the old records we have of Vorthak ships, the ones that used to conquer whole star systems before they just disappeared." Jake nodded slowly. Everyone in human space knew about the Vorthak Empire. They had been the most feared warriors in the galaxy until they vanished without explanation centuries ago. No one had ever found one of their ships intact before. "Any signs of life?" Jake asked. Chief Engineer Amy Brooks ran her scanners over the alien vessel. "No active power sources, no heat signatures. But, Captain, there are some strange readings coming from the cargo area. Something is in there." Tyler Green, the youngest member of the crew, looked up from his communication station. "Should we call for backup? This could be important enough for the military to handle." Jake thought about it for a moment. By the time military ships arrived, it would take weeks. This was the discovery of a lifetime. As a research captain, this was exactly the kind of thing he had spent his career hoping to find. "We go in ourselves," Jake decided. "Lisa, what are the contamination risks?" Dr. Carter frowned at her readings. "Unknown. We have no data on Vorthak, biology or technology. I recommend full environmental suits and limited exposure time." "Good enough. Ben, Amy, you are with me. Lisa, you monitor from here and guide us through anything we find. Tyler, keep the ship ready to leave fast if needed." 20 minutes later, Jake and his 2 officers stepped through the airlock onto the Vorthak ship. Their boots made strange echoing sounds on the metal floors. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move when they were not looking directly at them. "The air is breathable but old," Amy reported through her suit radio. "Gravity is a bit lighter than Earth normal." They moved through empty corridors that were too tall and too narrow for human comfort. Everything felt wrong, like the ship had been built by minds that thought very differently about space and movement. "The cargo bay should be just ahead," Lisa said through their radios. "I am picking up those strange readings more clearly now. There is definitely something active in there." Jake pushed open a massive door and stepped into a huge room filled with tall glass containers. Most of them were empty, but a few still had cloudy liquid inside them. "Stasis pods," Ben whispered. "They kept things alive in here." Jake counted them quickly. 47 pods total. 46 are empty." He walked toward the one that still had something inside. "This one still has power." Through the cloudy glass, they could see a dark shape floating in the liquid. It was roughly human-sized, but wrong in every way. Parts of it looked like living flesh, but other parts were clearly mechanical. Cables and wires seemed to grow out of its body like veins. "Captain, I strongly advise against opening that pod," Dr. Carter said through the radio. "We have no idea what that thing is or why it was kept in stasis." Jake stared at the creature inside. Something about it made his skin crawl, but his scientific curiosity was stronger than his fear. "This could answer questions about what happened to the Vorthak. We need to know." Before anyone could stop him, Jake found what looked like a control panel and pressed several buttons. The pod began to hum and the liquid started draining away. "Jake, no!" Lisa shouted through the radio. The glass front of the pod slid open with a wet sound. The creature inside fell forward onto the floor, coughing up stasis fluid. For a moment, it just lay there, not moving. Then it looked up. Jake found himself staring into eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. The thing's face was a mix of living tissue and metal plates. Its body was covered in what looked like armor, but the armor seemed to be part of its skin. The creature stood up slowly, studying the three humans. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, and moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something part machine. "Hello?" Jake said carefully. "We are explorers. We mean no harm." The creature tilted its head, then suddenly its eyes flared brighter. It moved faster than anything Jake had ever seen. One moment it was standing across the room, the next moment it had Ben pinned against the wall with one metal hand around his throat. "Ben!" Jake shouted, pulling out his sidearm. The creature looked at Jake and seemed to smile, showing teeth that were made of the same metal as its armor. It dropped Ben and turned its full attention to Jake. "Run, Captain!" Amy yelled, but Jake stood his ground. The creature lunged at Jake with claws that extended from its fingers like knives. Jake barely managed to dodge, rolling to the side as the claws tore through the metal wall where his head had been. This thing was built to kill. Every part of it was a weapon. It moved like it could predict where Jake would be before Jake even decided to move there. But Jake had been a soldier before he became a research captain, and old instincts kicked in. He fired his weapon, but the energy beam just bounced off the creature's armor. It laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. The fight was completely one-sided. The creature was faster, stronger, and seemed to know what Jake would do before he did it. But Jake noticed something strange. Every time the creature had a chance to kill him, it hesitated for just a moment. And it never attacked Ben or Amy while it was focused on Jake. "Get to the ship," Jake ordered his crew. "That is an order. We are not leaving you," Ben replied. "Go, protect the others." The creature paused, its glowing eyes fixed on Jake's face. For a moment, Jake thought he saw confusion there. Why would prey tell others to run? Why would it choose to face certain death to protect the weaker ones? Jake was bleeding from several cuts and his left arm was probably broken, but he stood between the creature and the path his crew needed to take to escape. The creature raised its claws for what should have been the killing blow. Then it stopped completely, staring at Jake like it was seeing him for the first time. Jake collapsed from his injuries, his vision going dark. The last thing he saw was the creature backing away into the shadows of the ship, those blue eyes still watching him with something that might have been wonder. Jake woke up in the medical bay of the Meridian 3 days later. His body felt like it had been hit by a shuttle, and his left arm was wrapped in healing bandages. Dr. Carter was sitting beside his bed, reading data from a tablet. "How bad is it?" Jake asked, his voice rough. Lisa looked up with relief in her eyes. "Bad enough? Broken arm, cracked ribs, and some deep cuts that barely missed major arteries. You lost a lot of blood, but you will live." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "The others? Ben and Amy?" "They are fine, shaken up, but fine." "Jake, we need to talk about what happened over there." "Where is that thing now?" Lisa hesitated. "That is what we need to talk about. It is still on the Vorthak ship. But Jake, it has not left. It is just staying there, and we think it is watching us." "Watching us how?" Ben Hayes appeared in the doorway. "Captain, you need to see this." He activated a wall screen that showed the view between their ship and the alien vessel. Amy set up external cameras to monitor the situation. On the screen, Jake could see movement in the shadows near the Vorthak, ship's docking port. Sometimes a blue glow would appear briefly, like eyes reflecting light. "It has been there for 3 days," Ben explained. "Just watching our ship. Tyler tried to move us away, but every time we start to pull back, it comes out into the open and stares at us until we stop." Dr. Carter pulled up more data on her tablet. "I have been monitoring its behavior patterns. Jake, this is going to sound strange, but I think it is specifically watching for you." "What do you mean?" "When you were unconscious, it would stay hidden most of the time. But whenever your vital signs changed or you moved in your sleep, it would come out and look directly at the medical bay windows, like it was checking on you." Jake stared at the screen. The idea that the creature that had nearly killed him was now somehow concerned about his health made no sense. "There is more," Amy Brooks said, joining them in the medical bay. I have been analyzing the energy readings from that ship. The creature is not just staying there randomly. It is actually maintaining the ship's life support and basic systems, like it is planning to stay there long-term. Tyler Green's voice came through the intercom. Captain, you should come to the bridge when you can move. Something is happening. Jake forced himself to stand up despite the pain. The crew helped him to the bridge, where Tyler was staring at his instruments with confusion. What is it? Jake asked. We have a problem with the hull in Section 7. A small meteor must have hit us while we were docked with the alien ship. We have a slow air leak. Amy checked her engineering displays. It is not critical yet, but we will need to go outside and patch it before it gets worse. I will suit up, Ben said, but Tyler held up his hand. Wait, look at this. Tyler pointed at the external camera display. On the screen, they could see the creature moving across the outside of the Vorthak ship toward their vessel. It was not wearing any kind of spacesuit, but it moved in the vacuum like it was walking, through air. What is it doing? Lisa asked. They watched as the creature reached their ship and began examining the damaged area. Its hands glowed with a blue energy, and it started working on the hull breach with tools that seemed to grow out of its arms. It is fixing our ship, Amy said in amazement. How did it even know we had a problem? Within minutes, the creature had completely repaired the damage. The air leak stopped, and their hull integrity was actually better than it had been before. The creature looked directly at the bridge camera, as if it knew they were watching. Then it moved back to the Vorthak ship and disappeared into the shadows. Again. This makes no sense, Ben said. 3 days ago it tried to kill you, and now it is protecting us? Dr. Carter was taking notes rapidly. I have been studying the records of Vorthak technology. They were known for creating biomechanical weapons, creatures that were part living tissue and part machine. This one might be some kind of prototype. A weapon that decides to help instead of hurt? Jake asked. It is more than that. Jake, I think what you did on that ship changed something fundamental in its programming. You put yourself between it and your crew. You chose to protect others instead of saving yourself. That might have been something it had never seen before. Over the next few hours, they observed the creature more carefully. It seemed to have established a routine of sorts. It would stay hidden most of the time, but whenever any of the crew moved around the ship, it would appear briefly to observe them. When Jake moved, it would watch longer and more intently. I think it is trying to understand us, Lisa said. Specifically, it is trying to understand you. That night, Jake had the first of what would become regular dreams. In the dream, he was not himself but something else, something that had been alone in the dark for a very long time. He felt memories that were not his own, memories of a race that had created weapons and then feared what they had made. He saw flashes of the creature's past, its awakening in a world where its creators were already dead, killed by their own weapons. He felt its confusion and its centuries of loneliness, drifting in space with nothing but the sleeping dead for company. When Jake woke up, he found Dr. Carter monitoring his sleep patterns. You were talking in your sleep, she said, about loneliness and creators and something about weapons that turned against their makers. Do you remember dreaming? Jake sat up slowly. I think that thing is somehow sharing its memories with me. Lisa, what if the Vorthak did not just disappear? What if their own weapons destroyed them? That would explain why we never found any survivors, just empty ships and dead worlds. Jake looked out the window toward the alien vessel. But this one is different. It did not kill its creators. It survived. And now it has found something new to protect instead of destroy, Lisa said softly. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. I want to go back over there. Absolutely not, Ben said immediately. Captain, that thing nearly killed you. But it did not. And now it is protecting us. I need to understand why. Dr. Carter shook her head. Jake, We have no idea what it might do. The behavioral change could be temporary, or it could be permanent. Lisa, you said yourself that it is trying to understand us. Maybe we need to try understanding it too. The next morning, Jake suited up and prepared to return to the Vorthak ship. His crew was not happy about it, but they could not argue with his logic. If they were going to be stuck out here with this creature, they needed to know what it wanted. As Jake approached the alien vessel, the creature appeared at the docking port. It stood there waiting, not threatening, just watching. When Jake entered the ship, the creature backed away but did not hide. "Hello again," Jake said softly. The creature tilted its head, the same gesture it had made during their first encounter, but this time, its eyes were not filled with killing intent. There was something else there, something that looked almost like curiosity. Jake took a step forward and the creature took a step back, maintaining the distance between them. But it did not leave. It was staying close enough to protect him if needed, but far enough away to avoid frightening him. For the first time since waking up from his injuries, Jake smiled. The thing that had been designed to kill him was now trying to keep him safe. And somehow that felt like the beginning of something neither of them had expected to find. The dreams became stronger every night. Jake would close his eyes and find himself experiencing memories that belonged to the creature. He saw the last days of the Vorthak Empire through eyes that glowed blue in the darkness. Dr. Carter had set up monitoring equipment in Jake's quarters to study what was happening. "Your brain activity during these dreams is unlike anything I have seen before," she told him one morning. "It is almost like you are receiving data transmissions." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "It is not just random images. There is a story there, a history. Lisa, the Vorthak did not just create weapons. They created something much worse." "What do you mean?" "They took living beings and turned them into killing machines. But they made a mistake with the first one. They left too much of the original mind intact." Jake had learned the creature's story through their shared dreams. It had once been a member of a peaceful species that the Vorthak had conquered. Instead of just killing them, the Vorthak had selected the strongest and most intelligent to become their ultimate weapons. The process was horrible. They replaced parts of the body with machines, rewrote parts of the brain, and programmed in combat instincts and tactical knowledge. But with the first prototype, something had gone wrong. The original personality had not been completely erased. "So, it remembers what it was before?" Lisa asked. "More than that. It remembers watching its own people die. It remembers being forced to kill for masters it hated. And it remembers the day the weapons finally turned on the Vorthak." Jake had seen that day through the creature's memories. The Vorthak had created dozens of these biomechanical weapons, but they had grown careless about the programming. Eventually, the weapons had realized they did not have to obey anymore. The war between the Vorthak and their own creations had been swift and brutal. The creatures knew every Vorthak military secret and had been designed to be perfect killers. Within months, the Empire was destroyed. But why did this one survive when the others did not? Lisa wondered. That was the question that haunted Jake's dreams. The other weapons had shut down after destroying the Vorthak, their programming complete. But this one, the first one, had continued to exist because it still had enough of its original self to want to live. "It has been alone for 500 years, Jake said quietly, drifting through space with nothing but corpses and memories. Tyler Green appeared in the medical bay doorway. "Captain, you need to come see this. The creature is doing something new." They followed Tyler to the observation deck, where they could see the creature working on the outside of the Vorthak ship. It was using tools that grew from its body to modify part of the hull. "What is it building?" Ben asked. Amy Brooks had been watching through her engineering scanners. "It looks like some kind of communication array. But the design is not Vorthak technology. It is something new." As they watched, the creature finished its work and activated the device. Immediately, their ship's communication systems came alive with a signal. "It is trying to talk to us," Tyler said, working frantically at his station. "But the signal is not in any language format we know." Dr. Carter studied the patterns on her screens. "It is not language at all. These are direct neural patterns, brainwave transmissions. It is trying to share thoughts directly." Jake felt a familiar tingling in his mind, the same sensation he got when the dreams started. But this time he was awake, and the images were clearer. He saw himself through the creature's eyes standing in the cargo bay 3 weeks ago. But the perspective was strange, like seeing through filters that measured threat levels and tactical advantages. Then the view changed, and Jake saw what the creature had seen when he stood between it and his crew. "It is showing me how it saw our first meeting," Jake said, his eyes closed in concentration. "When I told Ben and Amy to run, when I stood between them and it, something changed in how it viewed me." The images continued. Jake saw the creature's confusion as it tried to process behavior that did not match its understanding of prey species. He saw its memories of Vorthak soldiers who would sacrifice their own troops to save themselves, but Jake had done the opposite. It had never seen someone choose to protect others at the cost of their own life, Jake explained to his crew. That broke something in its programming, or maybe fixed something that had been broken for centuries. More images flowed through the connection. The creature showed him memories of its original people, beings who had lived in harmony and cared for each other. It showed him the pain of being forced to kill creatures like that, and the joy of finally finding someone who reminded it of what it had lost. "It sees you as kin," Lisa said softly. "Not human kin, but the same kind of being it was before the Vorthak changed it." The mental connection faded, leaving Jake exhausted but enlightened. "It does not want to be alone anymore, and it thinks I understand what it means to protect others instead of just surviving." Over the following days, the creature began spending more time in the open. The crew started calling it Shade because of the way it moved in and out of the shadows. Shade would work on maintaining both ships, always staying close enough to help if needed, but far enough away to avoid frightening anyone. Jake started visiting the Vorthak ship daily. Shade would follow him around at a distance like a guardian that wanted to protect, but was not sure if its protection was wanted. "It is learning to trust again," Dr. Carter observed. "But it is also teaching you something. Your dreams are not just random memories anymore. They are more like conversations." She was right. The dreams had evolved into a form of communication. Jake would experience Shade's memories, and Shade would experience his. They were sharing not just thoughts, but emotions and experiences. Through this connection, Jake learned that Shade's body was slowly failing. 500 years of existence had worn down its biomechanical systems. Parts of it were already shutting down, and others were running on backup power. "It is dying," Jake told his crew during a meeting. "The systems that keep it alive are breaking down. That is why it wants to stay close to us. We might be the last living beings it ever gets to know." Ben shook his head. "There has to be something we can do. Amy, can we help repair its systems?" Amy had been studying scans of Shade's technology. "The biomechanical integration is beyond anything humans have ever achieved. I would not even know where to start." But Jake had an idea that scared him and excited him at the same time. In his dreams, Shade had shown him memories of how the Vorthak had created their weapons by combining living tissue with mechanical systems. The process was meant to be one way, but Jake wondered if it could work in reverse. "What if we did not try to fix its systems?" Jake suggested. "What if we found a way to share ours?" Dr. Carter stared at him. "Jake, you cannot be serious. The risks would be enormous." So is watching a sentient being die alone after 500 years of loneliness. That night, Jake's dreams were different. Instead of receiving memories from Shade, he found himself in a space that felt like a conversation between minds. Shade was there, not as the creature he saw with his eyes, but as the being it had been before the Vorthak changed it. They spoke without words about loss and loneliness, about the desire to protect others and the pain of being unable to save everyone. Jake understood that Shade had found in him something it had thought was lost forever, a reminder that not all intelligent beings chose survival over compassion. When Jake woke up, he knew what he had to do. Shade was not just protecting him out of programming or instinct. It was protecting him because they had recognized something in each other that transcended species and origin. They had both learned that the greatest strength was not in surviving, but in choosing to care for others. And now Jake was going to prove that humans would not abandon someone who had made that same choice, no matter how dangerous it might be to save them. The distress call came at the worst possible time. Jake and Dr. Carter had been working on plans to help stabilize Shade's failing systems when Tyler picked up the emergency transmission. "Captain, we have an urgent message from the Harmony Colony. In the Delta Sector," Tyler announced from his station. "They are under attack by Kethmar raiders." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Kethmar were known throughout human space as slavers and pirates. They had technology that was superior to most human ships, and they showed no mercy to civilians. "How many ships are attacking them?" Jake asked. "Unknown, sir. The transmission was cut off mid-message, but Harmony Colony has over 3,000 civilians, including families with children." Ben Hayes looked up from his security station. "Captain, we are a research vessel. We are not equipped for combat against Kethmar warships." Jake knew Ben was right. The Meridian had basic defensive systems, but nothing that could stand against serious military vessels. Still, he could not ignore a "Distress call from human civilians. Set course for the Delta Sector," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." Dr. Carter grabbed his arm. "Jake, this is suicide. Even if we could somehow help those people, what about Shade? Its systems are failing faster each day." Jake looked out at the Vorthak ship, where he could see Shade's blue eyes, watching them from the shadows. "We will figure something out, but I cannot leave those people to die." The trip to Delta Sector took 18 hours. During that time, Jake spent every free moment with Shade, trying to explain what they were doing and why. Through their mental connection, he shared images of human families and children, helping Shade understand why they had to respond to the call. Shade's response surprised him. Instead of confusion or fear, Jake felt approval and understanding flow through their link. Shade had experienced the loss of innocent lives, and it supported Jake's decision to protect others even at great personal risk. "It wants to help," Jake told his crew. "Shade understands what we are trying to do." When they reached the Delta Sector, the situation was worse than they had feared. 3 Kethmar warships had surrounded Harmony Colony, and the small orbital station was already showing signs of damage from weapons fire. "They are not trying to destroy the colony," Amy observed from her engineering station. "They are just disabling their defenses so they can board and take prisoners." Tyler intercepted more transmissions. "The Kethmar are demanding surrender. They want the colonists to prepare for transport to slave processing facilities." Jake felt anger burn in his chest. The Kethmar treated humans like cargo, selling them to whoever would pay for forced labor. Many humans who were taken by slavers were never seen again. "Can we contact the colony?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. They are still receiving signals. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on as long as they can." Ben looked at Jake with concern. "Captain, what exactly are we planning to do? We have 1 ship against 3 Kethmar warships." Before Jake could answer, the Kethmar ships detected their approach. The largest of the 3 vessels turned toward them and began transmitting a warning. Tyler translated the message. "They are telling us to leave immediately or be destroyed. They claim salvage rights to this system." "Transmit a response," Jake said. "Tell them this is human space and they have no authority here. Demand that they withdraw." The Kethmar response was immediate. All three warships turned toward the Meridian and began powering up their weapons. "Captain, they are targeting us," Amy announced. "Their weapons are charging for attack." Jake knew they had maybe minutes before the enemy ships opened fire. The Meridian could not outrun them, and their defensive systems would not last long against concentrated fire from 3 military vessels. "Get me a channel to Shade," Jake ordered. Tyler looked confused. "Sir, we do not have communication equipment compatible with its neural patterns." "Then I will have to do this the hard way." Jake closed his eyes and reached out through the mental connection he shared with Shade. Through their link, he showed Shade what was happening. He shared images of the human families on the colony, the children who would be sold into slavery, the elderly who would be killed as worthless. He let Shade feel his anger and determination to fight even against impossible odds. Shade's response came as a flood of ancient memories and combat protocols that had been sleeping for centuries. Jake saw flashes of Vorthak military tactics, weapon systems that could tear apart starships, and strategies for fighting multiple opponents. "Shade is coming with us," Jake announced to his crew. "How?" Ben asked. "It cannot survive in space for extended periods." "It will not have to." "It is going to board the enemy ships." Before anyone could object, the Kethmar opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Meridian, forcing Tyler to take evasive action. Their shields absorbed some of the damage, but warning lights began flashing across the bridge. "Shields at 60%, Amy reported. "We cannot take much more of this." Through the view screen, they saw something impossible. Shade had left the Vorthak ship and was moving through space toward the nearest Kethmar vessel. It was not wearing any kind of spacesuit, but its biomechanical systems were adapting to the vacuum environment. "How is it surviving out there?" Dr. Carter asked in amazement. Jake was still connected to Shade's mind and could feel its systems adapting in real time. "It was designed to be the ultimate weapon. That includes operating in any environment." Shade reached the first Kethmar ship and began cutting through their hull with tools that emerged from its arms. Within minutes, it had created an entry point and disappeared inside the enemy vessel. The results were immediate and terrifying. The Kethmar ship's weapons stopped firing as internal explosions began tearing it apart from the inside. Through their connection, Jake could feel Shade moving through the ship like a force of nature, shutting down systems and eliminating threats with cold efficiency. "The second ship is turning toward us," Ben announced. "They are charging weapons." But Shade was already moving toward the second vessel. This time it did not bother with cutting through the hull. Instead, it tore open their main airlock and entered through the breach. Jake felt every moment of the battle through their shared consciousness. Shade was not just fighting, it was systematically dismantling the ship's ability to function. It knew exactly where to strike to disable weapons, engines, and life support. The second Kethmar ship went dark within minutes. The third ship, the largest one, tried to escape. But Shade was already moving toward it, and nothing in space could match its speed and maneuverability. "Captain, you need to see this," Tyler said, pointing at his displays. "The Kethmar are sending surrender signals." Too late. Shade had reached the command ship and was already inside. But something was wrong. Through their connection, Jake could feel Shade's systems overloading from the exertion. The creature was pushing its failing biomechanical components beyond their limits. "Shade is in trouble," Jake said. "The combat protocols are burning out its remaining systems." Dr. Carter checked her readings. "Its life signs are becoming erratic. Jake, it is using up everything it has left to protect those colonists." The third Kethmar ship stopped moving, its engines dead and weapons offline. But Jake barely noticed because he could feel Shade's pain through their mental link. The creature was dying, its ancient systems finally giving out after 500 years of existence. "Take us to that ship," Jake ordered. "Emergency speed." As the Meridian approached the disabled Kethmar vessel, Jake felt Shade's consciousness growing weaker. The creature had accomplished its mission, had protected the innocent humans it had never even met, but the cost was its own life. When they docked with the enemy ship, Jake found Shade collapsed in the command center, its blue eyes dimming as its systems shut down one by one. The creature that had been designed to kill and had chosen instead to protect was finally succumbing to centuries of damage and exhaustion. Jake knelt beside Shade and placed his hand on its armored head. Through their fading connection, he felt gratitude and peace. Shade had found purpose again in its final moments, and that was enough. But Jake was not ready to let his friend die. Not after everything they had shared, and not when he finally understood what true strength looked like. "Lisa," Jake called through his radio, "prepare the medical bay. We are going to try that procedure we discussed. Jake, the risks are worth it. This creature saved thousands of lives today. Now it is our turn to save it." Dr. Carter worked frantically to prepare the medical bay while Jake and his crew carefully transported Shade from the disabled Kethmar ship. The creature's systems were failing rapidly, its blue eyes flickering like dying stars. "I still think this is insane," Lisa said as she connected monitoring equipment to both Jake and Shade. "We are talking about linking human biological systems with alien biomechanical technology. We have no idea what could happen." Jake lay on the medical table next to Shade, feeling the creature's pain through their weakening mental connection. "We know what will happen if we do nothing. Shade dies, and I lose the best friend I have ever had." Amy Brooks finished setting up the experimental equipment they had cobbled together from medical scanners, engineering tools, and salvaged technology from the Vorthak ship. "The theory is sound," she said, though her voice betrayed her nervousness. "If we can create a stable biological link between your systems and Shade's, your living tissue might be able to help repair and maintain its mechanical components." Ben Hayes stood guard at the door, still uncomfortable with the entire situation. "Captain, what if something goes wrong? What if it changes you into something that is not human anymore?" Jake looked at Shade's dimming form and made his decision. "Then at least I will not be alone." The procedure was unlike anything that had ever been attempted. Using their existing mental connection as a guide, Dr. Carter began the delicate process of creating biological pathways between Jake's nervous system and Shade's biomechanical networks. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Jake felt a strange, tingling sensation spreading through his body, followed by the most intense sharing of consciousness he had ever experienced. Suddenly, he was not just Jake Morrison. He was also the being that Shade had been before the Vorthak changed it, a peaceful creature from a world of harmony and cooperation. He felt Shade's memories not as foreign experiences, but as part of his own history. At the same time, Shade was experiencing Jake's memories. It felt what it was like to grow up human, to choose a career protecting others, to find family among the crew of a starship. It experienced human emotions like love, loyalty, and hope for the future. The two consciousnesses flowed together and apart like streams of water finding their course. Jake felt his own biological systems reaching out to Shade's failing mechanisms, offering strength and stability. In return, Shade's advanced healing capabilities began repairing damage to Jake's body that he had not even known existed. "The integration is working," Dr. Carter announced, watching her instruments with amazement. "Both life signs are stabilizing." But the process was not without cost. Jake felt his body changing as it adapted to support Shade's systems. His reflexes became faster, his senses sharper, his healing rate increased dramatically. At the same time, Shade's mechanical components began to regenerate, using biological patterns they learned from Jake's DNA. "How do you feel?" Lisa asked. When the worst of the procedure was over, Jake sat up slowly, marveling at how different everything looked and felt. His vision was clearer, and he could sense electromagnetic fields and energy patterns that had been invisible before. Different, but still me. Shade rose from its table, its blue eyes now bright and steady. The creature looked at Jake with an expression that seemed to combine gratitude, friendship, and something that might have been love between two beings who had chosen to share their very existence. "Can you still communicate with it?" Tyler asked. Jake did not need to concentrate to reach Shade's mind anymore. The connection was permanent and effortless. "We can communicate, but it is more than that. We are connected in ways I cannot fully explain." Over the following days, the true extent of their bond became apparent. Jake found that he could access Shade's memories and knowledge as easily as his own. He understood Vorthak technology, combat, strategies, and star charts for regions of space that humans had never explored. Shade, in turn, had gained something it had lost centuries ago. Through its connection with Jake, it could experience positive emotions again. It could feel hope, joy, and the satisfaction that came from protecting others by choice rather than programming. "The changes in both of you are remarkable," Dr. Carter observed during their daily checkups. "Jake, your cellular regeneration rate has increased by over 300%, and Shade's mechanical systems are not just stable, they are actually improving." More importantly, Shade could now rest. For the first time in 500 years, the creature could enter a sleep-like state when it was near Jake. The constant vigilance and loneliness that had defined its existence were replaced by peace and companionship. The crew of the Meridian gradually adapted to their new situation. Shade became a permanent member of the team, contributing its vast knowledge of alien technology and its protective capabilities to their missions. "It is strange," Ben said one day, as they watched Jake and Shade working together on a complex engineering problem. "A few weeks ago, I was terrified of that thing. Now I cannot imagine our crew without it." Tyler nodded. "They complement each other perfectly. Jake provides the humanity and emotional understanding, while Shade provides the knowledge and capabilities we need to handle dangerous situations." The bond between Jake and Shade proved its value when they encountered other threats in deep space. Pirates, hostile aliens, and dangerous cosmic phenomena all found themselves facing not just a human crew, but a partnership between species that combined the best qualities of both. But the most significant change was in Shade itself. Through its connection with Jake, the creature rediscovered emotions and motivations that its creators had tried to eliminate. It learned to laugh at Tyler's jokes, to appreciate Amy's engineering brilliance, and to feel genuine affection for the crew members who had accepted it as family. "I think we have witnessed something unprecedented," Dr. Carter wrote in her final log entry about the bonding process. "Two completely different forms of consciousness have merged without either losing their individual identity. Jake is still fundamentally human, and Shade retains its unique perspective and abilities. But together, they have become something greater than either could be alone." Jake stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the stars streak by as they traveled toward their next mission. Shade stood beside him, no longer hiding in shadows but taking its place as a full member of the crew. Through their permanent connection, Jake could feel Shade's contentment. The creature that had been designed as the ultimate weapon had found its true purpose as the ultimate guardian. It had learned that strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the choice to protect. "Where are we going next?" Amy asked from her engineering station. Jake smiled, feeling Shade's anticipation mixing with his own excitement about future adventures. "Wherever we are needed. There are always people out there who need protection, mysteries that need solving, and dangers that need facing. And we will face them together," Ben added, speaking for the entire crew. Jake nodded, his hand resting on Shade's armored shoulder. The creature that had been alone for 500 years would never be alone again. And Jake had gained not just a partner, but a friend who understood sacrifice and loyalty in ways that transcended species and origin. They were proof that the greatest strength in the universe was not the power to destroy, but the courage to care for others. And together, they would carry that message to every corner of space they explored. The stars ahead seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities for two beings who had chosen connection over isolation, protection over destruction, and hope over despair. Their bond was unbreakable, and their purpose was clear. Some things in the universe were designed to kill, but the best things chose to love and protect instead. Jake and Shade were living proof that even the most unlikely partnerships could become the strongest bonds of all.